what's going on. Why do I want to be
That
with the
romantic.
bucket? Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing. Yes, the bucket.
Hello everyone, this is Esper and we're back here in the Stanley Parables 2. Not really 2, it's 1 deluxe mode, but narrator made it into number 2. I'm told that it's everything is like very different. That there's a bunch of new endings for us to replay a lot of the previous ones we did. And I was also told by my sister that we messed up one of our endings we did before. We started one, the chaos one, where the line was going everywhere. I guess we got halfway through it and then diverted off. I thought we were done with it, but we weren't. Oops, that's my bad. So, but we will see how this goes. I'm just hoping I don't accidentally hit the one ending on this that will revert it back to Stanley Parables 1 before we get to see everything. But we do have more, I'm told, in the first one that we'll have to play. But my hope is if we accidentally do set it off, that maybe we can just go back into the special feature area and maybe it'll reset it. I don't know. Let's begin.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them.
Not skipping in case there's anything new.
This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Okay, we're Stanley.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions,
the
call a
balloons.
meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Okay. I don't know here.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Oh, please. Are you really just doing this for the achievement? Click a door 5 times. Is that all that you think an achievement is worth? No,
We've already done that.
No. I can't just give these merits away for such little effort. A measly 5 clicks. Now suppose you were to click the door 20 times. I would say that's the kind of effort that warrants recognition.
I might do it here in a bit. Right now we're messing with other things. The bucket.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
I have the bucket. Horse. What do I do with the bucket? Throw the bucket at the window. I'm assuming the bucket's not the ending. It's the first thing you see. Ew.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Right. Wait. What happens if we just stand here for a moment? Will he complain? You gonna say anything? Oh. Actual ending.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
Check out the doors again.
And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be.
I want a
Truly,
bucket full of
being here
coffee,
with
please.
The bucket was a grand adventure. Stanley reflected on all they'd been through together. First, walking through the door on the right, then walking to the lounge, then arriving at the lounge. What a thrilling journey the bucket had inspired.
I want a bucket of coffee. It's my only friend.
Perhaps this was where the bucket felt most truly at home. Here
Yes.
in the employee lounge. Perhaps it's the only place a bucket can even feel at home.
Yes, because it needs to be filled with coffee. Oh,
Stanley decided to just give the bucket absolutely as much time as it needed to be in the lounge. Clearly, the bucket and the employee lounge shared a special connection.
obviously. I wish I could, like, throw and break things. Anything else, sir? A little less snarky right now, I feel like.
But finally, the bucket was done being in the lounge, and they took the first open door on their left to get back to business.
Oh, yeah, this ending.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Did we find something new? I have not found this. Bucket version or not? That. Where's my dialogue? You not gonna say anything? Watch, I want to find the one ending that's at the
Okay.
home.
This is day number 295. Tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling.
and the emptiness in my chest when I set it down.
Oh my.
It doesn't make sense. There's no explanation for it. I still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure? I can monetize it.
That's it.
Yes. It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket. This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there?
What did I just listen to? Oh my. Did that reset us? Did we
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
I'm... Grab it again.
Stanley lifted
Yes.
the bucket into his arms,
We're
and a
gonna go
wave
somewhere
of
else, see what
comfort
happens.
rushed over him. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
I know.
But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him,
I'm gonna go
telling him
to the
that
actual lift this
employee
time.
lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the
Yeah.
door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the
I
cargo
wanna look.
lift.
Because we went in the vent. But there's that, like the walk. Oh, that's like trophy stuff.
You found
Like-
one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done.
Thank
You
you.
can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Oh, wonderful. Now, I don't want to do that again. I don't think we can get back up. We're gonna jump.
But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How
Nice.
deeply touching.
I wonder how many times I should grab the bucket. I'm gonna grab the
All of
bucket
his
and I'm gonna
co-workers
actually
were
take the lift
gone.
across this
What could it
time.
mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
Yep,
But
yep.
Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the
Go this
employee
way.
lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now
Wait.
ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up
What's this?
there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him.
I wish I could
It
get
should have
down there.
alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
There, got on. Where are we at? Weird dark room. I still haven't
No,
got.
stop. Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, no buckets past this point. Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless, what if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do something about it.
What?
This misunderstanding could have dire consequences on the entire rest of the game if not addressed quickly and properly. So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment.
It's dark. What is this? My goodness.
Now then, I'm going to run you through some test scenarios, and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket.
Oh, no.
Okay, let's begin. Item 1. Is this a bucket?
No.
Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
Oh.
Item 2. Is this a bucket? Correct. It is a 3D printed recreation of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
Okay.
Item 3. Is this a bucket?
I'm gonna say no to all of them.
Incorrect. This is a bucket. Item 4. Is this a bucket?
Yes.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor. It's an enormous machine that tills the earth. I thought this was a gimmick. How on earth did you manage to screw it up? Absolutely incredible. Let's just move on to the next one. Is this a bucket? Correct. This is a bucket.
Okay.
Item 6. Is this a bucket? Trick question. Both. Gotcha. Item... Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. It should be around here somewhere.
The one I'm holding?
Yes. Thank you. There's nothing here. Of course it isn't a bucket. We both know full well nothing isn't a bucket. Wait, when I say nothing isn't a bucket, that makes it sound like I'm saying everything is a bucket, which of course is not true. Unless, is that what you think? Answer me straight, Stanley. Are you trying to tell me that you believe everything is a bucket? You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments ago I could answer these questions with confidence, and yet now I'm somewhat adrift. Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am I a bucket? Stanley, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with. I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry, but I'm going to erase all buckets from the game entirely.
No.
Okay, here we go.
I haven't finished. No. He took my buckets
What
away.
happened? Is everything gone? Why did everything disappear?
Because everything's a bucket.
Was everything a bucket? Every single thing in the game was a bucket. Oh my God, I had no idea. How could... Except me. I'm not a bucket after all. And you, Stanley, you're still here. You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're not buckets. Yes, I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue, but it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So,
I hope we
tell you
didn't kill
what,
it.
I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay? And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that. Who knows what that information might do to a person? All right, here we go.
Oh, I was hoping he was not going to mess up the Stanley 2 portion of this. Okay, we're going to grab the
All of his
bucket and actually go
co-workers were
across this
gone.
time.
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Warmth spread through Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
So many
But
ways
Stanley
to
had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Okay, we're actually going to go across this time.
No.
But we
said
need
the
to
bucket.
remember that
Don't go to the meeting
as a
room.
possible way
Go
we can
somewhere
go
else. The cargo lift.
in the
Good,
regular.
said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
In here.
said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
I'm obeying the bucket lord. Gonna go to the creepy mannequin house. Bucket. No. Wait.
Now pick up the phone.
Said the bucket.
Pick up the phone and it will take us back home where we can go about life together.
Can I ignore it? Okay, creepy mannequin.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him.
Uh. Okay. So Stanley's me, your bucket. Press O to take me to you.
The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It doesn't literally talk and give you orders. Whatever Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head.
Take me back home with you.
Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over an inanimate metal object?
Hello, bucket.
I want to say something to him, but I don't know how I can convince him. I don't know if he'll listen to me.
Where's our clock? We didn't set our clock this time. So is it just zeros? They didn't ask us to set it.
Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me? Listen to me. It's just a bucket. It can't think, it can't talk. All it will ever truly do for you is effectively transfer a liquid from one location to a different location. That's it. It doesn't do anything else.
It listens to me. Don't listen to the loud man. See you first.
You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket. You know, once upon a time it was me he took orders from. Me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares about is his awful bucket. This stupid hunk of metal.
I wish I could mess with things. Ignore anyone in your life except for me.
It's sad, but I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From
Nope.
now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket, this cold, empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The bucket does have a nice shine to it.
You believe it? Sorry, I'm trying to fix my headset. You believe I'm real, don't you? It's cute to go back home.
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket. It's just a little more, what am I trying to say?
Watching
Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid. Like it would be better at moving an amount of water from one room to another.
I stand to relive the same day with me over and over.
Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water from room to room. It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
It's a bucket. Go home, to work, to home, to work, to home.
Oh no, I'm having feelings for the bucket. No, 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 no. What's going on? Why do I want to be
That
with
romantic.
the bucket? Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing. Yes, the bucket could tell me what to do in this troublesome situation.
Oh no.
Stanley, give me the bucket. Give it to me. Give me the bucket, Stanley.
No.
I need it. Give it to me now. Give it, or I'll...
No. Took my bucket. Okay. Took my bucket. Now.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley picked up the bucket.
We're
and
going to go some of the
smiled.
other ways with the
He'd
bucket
never
now.
be alone again, not truly alone, not with the bucket around. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and
There you
entered
go,
the
this
door on
way.
it. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No,
Nope,
never mind.
it was wrong.
The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Alright, so that's the confusion ending thing that she said we didn't finish in the first one. We do it with the bucket.
Oh, good, Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually.
What?
You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around
This
everywhere.
baby.
The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before.
My bucket.
Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line?
No.
We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it.
I bring faucet. Not gonna say anything about it. Hey. Anakin. Giant baby. That's something we've missed from the first playthrough somewhere, is a giant baby.
Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well.
He doesn't.
Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up.
What's gonna happen if I do this without the bucket in tow? Just steal my bucket again.
Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the Bucket Destroyer. I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me, it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready. Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows. That is its singular personality trait. Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The broom closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want. Hurry and...
Fine.
The Bucket Destroyer, my prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend.
Goodbye.
For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
We're gonna have to try that again, see if we can actually feed it the bucket. Okay. If we can actually feed it the bucket.
All of his co-workers were gone. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something. Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the Bucket Destroyer.
Okay, we're gonna try it.
I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me, it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
Can I throw it in?
Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the bucket destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket.
I'm
Destroying
trying.
buckets is all it knows. That is its singular personality trait. Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The broom closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want.
I want to give them the bucket. I was trying to. It's not doable.
The Bucket Destroyer, my prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
Well, we just saw that one twice because I tried to blow up the bucket and it didn't work. Okay. This is like a very bucket-heavy episode.
Yes,
so.
That's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room.
Where are we going today? The bucket asked. Stanley just smiled. Anywhere they went together would be...
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Thanks. There will be reward for finding. Mission status. Well, stairs. Something to do with stairs. Some are both red and blue. Nearby a fireplace. Private but smelly place for an important person. Gotta collect them all. Huh. Lies. Okay. Trust the completion instinct. Why wouldn't they just tell us something will happen? This investigation. This room. They feel pointless. Huh.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy? It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over.
Why give me a bucket if you don't like
We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends? That your relationship is purely superficial and convenient? That your life is so banal and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner? Well, I never.
Who
Go on,
knows?
Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared together. Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entry detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it.
Been like 40 minutes. Now with the broom.
Okay, I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go. There. Now it's settled. No more debate, no more discussion. Take
Thank
a
you.
hike, broom closet, with all your meandering philosophical diatribes about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom
Bye.
closets in the natural order of things. All right, I've got a second sticker back here, and I'm going to slap it on as well because I think it's appropriate. You see? I feel that it works because the sticker is also a bucket.
Bucket
That
sticker.
way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, ah, it's a bucket. There really is a wide variety of applications for this sticker.
Any more stickers?
You know what? I could take the name-calling and the dismissal of your kinship with the bucket, but now the broom closet is just giving us the silent treatment. And to be honest, I'm sick of the pettiness on display. You can stay here all you like, but I've had it with this impetulant room of cleaning supplies. Easily the most childish such room I've ever been in. I'll see you outside, and we can get on with the story about you and your bucket.
Okay. Give him another moment. Make sure he's not going to come back. Of course, we're going to step right back in here. Okay. Nothing? Oh.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Well, I see blue stuff. I wonder about the achievement. Red and blue. There.
Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini-stands? Stanley figs? What about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Okay. Well, we're down here. Let's go ahead and do it this way.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket.
My
Someone
bucket.
else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly
And it has
wrong.
my stickers.
Surely no good would come from this.
My
Who
bucket.
knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the
Bucket.
psychologically grounding presence of his bucket.
You took it.
Now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And
My
now he felt
bucket.
himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley,
Bucket!
it's me! The bucket!
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were
Buckets!
his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley! Find me!
He had to find the bucket.
A
He had to
bucket!
return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along.
I hate
It
it.
was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
my bucket.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him.
My bucket,
Perhaps
I
he
had
didn't
it.
even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place.
No,
How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought.
it's in the
And
bed.
she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Backflip. Dang.
A good bucket, a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Something both red and blue. Nearby a fireplace. I bet that's in the office. Private smelling. Oh, that's the bathroom.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours. But alas, no stickers.
Stickers! Any more?
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
We can sit on the toilet here. We didn't explore this area as well. I want to say in the first one. We did it a little bit. I don't know if anything happens. Honestly. This is like instant.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the pin number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him?
Yes.
Yes. This is certainly the most logical explanation.
Okay. We got the up and down ending to try.
You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten all of the Figler and Marines. Very soon, you'll
They're
collect the
other.
last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it. We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them, and now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Marines. None of us can.
Okay, we're gonna go up and down now.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Wait, Stanley said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3. I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again.
Okay. Push
Bucket
3.
said nothing.
Go press the button. Anytime's over.
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button. He took the bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely slamming on the number 3 over and over and over. Well, he said, the number 3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such a connection with the bucket. How was this not as exciting to the bucket as it was to him? Once Stanley had had enough of the number 3, he got back in the elevator. Perhaps the bucket had missed something. Perhaps it had not seen how much joy Stanley got from slamming the number 3 repeatedly. No, said Stanley to the bucket. You can't go on yet. Not till you understand how much the number 3 means to me. You and I have been through so much together, and I just want you to see what I see. Feel the happiness I feel. He smiled at the bucket, and the bucket said nothing.
The bucket said nothing.
Here we go, said Stanley. This time I'll really show you. He ran to the number 3 and began to wail on it like a musician on a beloved instrument, weaving a concerto of truth and passion. He wielded the number 3 like a fine artist would wield a paintbrush. He told stories through the number 3, stories of his dreams and hopes and fears, and the whole time he looked to his bucket for a reaction of some kind. Anything to let him know that the bucket appreciated what he was doing. The bucket conveyed absolutely nothing at all, only silence. Crushed by a wave of dejection, Stanley returned to the elevator.
Ah, darn bucket.
Stanley and the bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another. Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion of 'The question caused Stanley to ruminate the whole way down the elevator. He knew that there must be a way to get through to the bucket, to communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Surely, you'd think. One more time. 2 times. Couple times. I don't know. I think it's almost 7.
Said Stanley. I know what to do. I know how to fully express this feeling in my heart. He decided right then and there that he would hold a press conference where he would speak to the public on all matters relating to pressing the number 3 over and over. He would elaborate fully on what the number 3 meant to him and why he felt so alive when pressing it. Then the bucket would be able to see his joy through the eyes of others. It would get to see the world react to this discovery of Stanley's. And it would be through the public eye that the bucket would finally understand Stanley's work. For months, he advertised and marketed his press conference, building excitement around it, developing and rehearsing it, until it couldn't be refined a single measure further. When the big day arrived, Stanley was as prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life.
Freeze!
This was it. One last chance to win the bucket over. One opportunity to share a true connection with a loved one.
Free again and again. Okay, it might get loud. The dude who came up with...
There was no one here. Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak, to listen to him talk about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and over. He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure, and in that moment Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that slowly, over many years, the two of them grew more and more distant. They spoke less and less, neither wishing to state the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit, only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley, having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Oh, bucket friend. My bucket. I'm working through like all bucket stuff right now.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Might
What
as
could
well.
it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
The embrace of an old friend, a
Got to
weathered
keep the
companionship
bucket.
that stands the test of time.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Oh. Then we're both red and blue.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours.
But coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Red and blue. I wonder... I feel like there's more to that room that I just don't know yet.
Office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him, always. The bucket would. And he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket, that Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Russian.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Oops, sorry. I paused it for a second because my sister wrote saying what to not do to end it, and I forgot to unpause it. All I did was I went down the escape hall, though. Please be the endless hole. But I should be okay as long as I keep the bucket with me when I do the ending.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
A bucket.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end, as it was crushed violently to death. It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
Bucketing. Hole.
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
Bucket with two hands. $25 buckets. Photograph 25 buckets, the greatest number of buckets ever captured on camera. The photographer experienced catatonic shock for several weeks as a result of the euphoria from exposure to this many buckets at once. Or no bucket. The replica of the Inferno bucket, which is in the medieval area, was so powerful and alluring that it drove dozens of nations to war with one another for control of it. Billions died, and yet in spite of it all, the simple fact remains: no one can control the bucket.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
Yes, bucket analogy. Very negative. Hey. a whole museum for the bucket. A hanging bucket. Infinite hole, please, 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 please. No, I wanted to fall in the hole. I want the infinite hole again. I
But
like
there
the
is
hole.
something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong. Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the
What?
machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new
Is this
vision.
darker? This is a lot darker than the last time. She was encouraging us to live. Sure.
The bucket made Stanley want to be a better man and a better... Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
I'm curious.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be
Yeah,
correct?
looking.
Was this better than the meeting room? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
She says something about breaking a window. My sister does. We still have one more of these to get, too.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked
Okay,
upstairs to the
but we should be
boss's
safe as
office.
long as we have the bucket. We can do the endings. Window. I don't know of any window you can go out.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along?
Okay,
Was
she
the
says the
bucket
end,
guiding him?
the
Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
actually end Stanley Parable 2 thing here and go to the other version. I'd have to actually play the epilogue without the bucket. So we should be fine as long as we're doing it with the bucket. Zap, zap.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
They show me a bunch of buckets.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter.
My bucket.
His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
My bucket.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Now we're here. Two choices again.
When at last they came to the source of the room's power, Stanley and the bucket knew it was their obligation to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
I'm thinking maybe I should actually save the official epilogue with the bucket and without bucket to the end. As a thing to do together.
Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over?
Pitch black.
Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind
Dark
control
everywhere.
machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin
Nice.
watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support, and... What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped?
Uh-oh.
Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty, until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave. Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket.
No.
Very lengths not to part with the bucket. No. Stanley can't
Come
leave
back.
this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms.
A bucket.
Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
What? Okay. There went the bucket. Oh. You get the bucket. There's something about a window.
Not everyone is so lucky to have a bucket, but Stanley is a very lucky fellow. Very lucky indeed.
Oh.
Hey Stanley, it's me. Just calling to let you know that you left your bucket at home. Silly. It's okay. I'm off to pick up groceries soon, so I could swing by your work and drop the bucket off at... Oh, wait a minute. This isn't your bucket. Wait, whose bucket is this? Well, if it doesn't belong to anyone else, I guess I could just, keep it.
I got
Yeah,
mine.
I'd really like to hang out with this bucket for a while. Oh, sorry, what was I saying? Oh yeah, have a nice day at work. I'll be here at home with my bucket. Bye, Stanley.
To the first window you see walking out of the office. How do I get up? Let me double check these are the right ones she wants me to. And in here. Okay, she says yes. Oh!
Yes, whispered the bucket into Stanley's ear. We've done it. We've escaped from that dull office and that pesky narrator. At last, out here in the white void, we are alone. Now, and for the first time, I can reveal to you my true self. The bucket began to tell Stanley of its life and its history, of the countless wars it witnessed, desecrating the land and lives of untold numbers of innocent humans, and the bucket's own complicity therein, of sadness and regret, and the many years it spent dwelling on the actions it might have taken to curb the madness and the decay, if only it had been stronger, of hope and redemption, and its crusade to uplift the stock of life for the common man, to manifest justice where none existed, and the bittersweet reality of time, to see one's dreams and wishes met halfway, meted out in parcels like charity, and abandoned as soon as the warm glow of inspiration begins to dim. The opportunities to
Light
do
changes
so
in the
much
bucket when I
more.
look around.
There was so much it could have done, perhaps, the bucket wondered to itself. Perhaps, if it had
Wait,
seen
we're
its
still here.
own darkness with a clearer perception. This was way too much for Stanley.
Not like
What are
phone.
you talking about?
He screamed.
You're a bucket!
To this, the bucket furrowed its brow.
No,
Said the bucket.
not since the evil wizard Gambhorata first ensnared me in his machinations as payback for the sacred amulet I stole from his treasured vaults. I was young back then and could not conceive the ramifications of... No!
Stanley screamed even louder this time.
This is stupid! You are a bucket!
You are
This
a
is so stupid! Why are we even doing this?
As Stanley screamed and screamed and screamed, the bucket revealed its true form, transforming into a mighty beast of untold power, its fangs glistening like...
Okay.
Stanley, you did it. You saved us from the bucket. Thank God you already had all 12 emblems of sages and knew the incantations to summon their true power. Otherwise, we would have easily been overwhelmed by the bucket's power. I'm speechless. You've demonstrated such bravery here today.
Fucking death.
Come, let's restart the game, and we'll agree to never again go trifling with this bucket, nor the dark magic cast away inside of it.
Okay. What happens if we do that without the bucket?
Stanley had never seen the office this brightly lit. Was it a sign of something? He hoped it was. He hoped very much that it was.
We jumped without the bucket.
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map, until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet? Ah, then in that case we'll continue. But now, here comes the real question. What do you think would have happened if you had told me that you wanted this to stop? Do you think it would have been particularly different? Would I have taken the same idea but rephrased it superficially to fit that answer? Perhaps you never would even have thought of it if I hadn't brought up the issue in the first place. Oh, now think about it. Will it be worth it for you to restart and then come back here just to do the other option? Clearly, this whole gag takes some time. What if the other option is even longer? How long will you spend in total just to have heard all the narration? Oh, and this is rich. Perhaps you've just played the other option, and now you've come to see what happens in this one. So, what do you think? Which choice was the better one? Imagine if you had selected continue on your first playthrough, how tantalizing it would be not knowing what happens when you pick the other option. Indeed, you are one of the lucky ones. Though if the other option is really miserable to listen to, then perhaps you're not. In fact, I'm just going to say that no one who's listening to this is lucky. Well now, I've built up the other option so much that I'm going to stop talking and leave you to your decision whether to come back here, continue with the game, or just sit in this spot forever and ever. Cheers.
What? Not sick of it, am I? Going to. Do I have to restart the game? Um.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
I am gonna skip the bucket.
When
This
Stanley
way.
came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
We
It
don't
was
have,
okay.
honestly, we're gonna do one more ending.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his
No,
left.
that ending takes a long. I'm gonna check.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
We got that one, we can check. Feeling that one might lead us to that baby thing.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance.
This is the no bucket area. Couldn't come in here before.
Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door. And there it is,
The last Stiggly Wiggly. Savor this moment, Stanley.
I got
This
them all.
is a real
Yay.
accomplishment. This is doing something just for the sake of doing it. Where so many people expect to be rewarded for the most trivial achievements, you've insisted that a job well done is its own reward. I would tell you that I'm proud of you for collecting them all, but that would be like a reward, and we can't have that. So, instead I'll just say, it's done. We're all done here. And now we can go to whatever the hell you were doing before you hunted for figurines.
Okay. I'm gonna go to the blue door.
Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door. I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red... All right, fine, go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you. You see? There's nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story I had written out specifically for you?
Yes.
Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did. And in the end, it was all for nothing. Because this is what you wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would have made this game better? What did you want to see? Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you
Your
what,
annoyance is
let me
good.
take a stab in the dark at a new design, and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices? Feel free to be honest. I'm looking for some real critical feedback here. Aha! You see, I knew I was onto something. Where do these flashes of inspiration come from? How did I know the game needed a third door?
Yeah.
Well, it's instinct mostly, a calling in your gut. I really couldn't say where the idea came from, except that I felt it in my soul. You can't teach that, Stanley. Don't even try. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, leaderboard now. Base chief doors closed. Interesting. Interesting. That's only force 3 players, just the blue door. Take you to get nice.
Now, would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again, honest answers, please. Hey, I nearly forgot. I've got a prototype of a new game I've been working on, and now would be a lovely opportunity to give it some playtesting. You wouldn't mind taking a look at it, would you? Perfect. Let me boot it up. In this game, the baby crawls left towards danger. You click the button to move him back to the right, and if he reaches the fire, you fail. It's a very meaningful game, all about the desperation and tedium of endlessly confronting the demands of family life. I think the art world will really take notice. But of course, the message of the game only becomes clear once you've been playing it for about 4 hours. So why don't you give it 4 hours of play to make sure it's effective? Be sure to keep notes on your experience.
That's annoying. Oh no. Okay, I'm gonna ignore it.
You heartless... Did you do it because you hate babies or purely to spite me? Because if it's the latter, well, I don't know what to do. I'm completely out of ideas. I can't think of a single thing that might improve the experience for me. I'm not even going to try. I'm out. I'm done. It's over. Thank you for playing. Your input was extremely valuable. Oh, hey, since my game was so awful, why don't we play someone else's game, just to ease the pain? Let's see. What do we have here? Yes, this seems like it'll work. Let's give it a shot.
Reload.
Aha! Fascinating. What do you think this game is about, Stanley? What's our backstory? What is our motivation?
Bleach.
Well, it seems obvious to me that you are meant to play as a creepy man spying on innocent civilians below you from up high in your creep tower, perhaps for some sort of twisted, erotic purpose. Yes, that must be it. What a fascinating venture into the experience of total mental depravity. So far, I love everything about this game, Stanley. And it seems there's even more. Come, let's venture outward and see what else is out there.
Looks like we're a park ranger. Turn those on. Click, 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 click.
Oh, no. No, it can't be.
But
It is. It's an open world game. Good God, quickly block it off. Oh, thank goodness, Stanley. What a close call. You nearly wandered off into that thing. That big, open, just wandering around. No right or wrong directions. No path to follow. You can just go in any... Oh, thank heavens we avoided it. We're out of the woods now, Stanley. Okay, I'm going to get us out of here. Let's find another game. Preferably something with walls.
let's start
Something
fire.
with nice, big, insurmountable walls. Okay, I think this will be just the thing.
Let's try to get to that gap.
Wonderful. See, this is exactly what I had in mind. Just a nice big box for you to run
Oh, what
around
is it?
in.
This
There
is
isn't
the
any
racing
possibility
thing.
that you could get lost here. Now this is game design. Stanley, if you manage to get lost in this game, I will be phenomenally impressed.
I'm trying to think of what this game is called. Please be the
Okay, so what exactly do we do here? Let's see. There are lots of cars here in the back, but obviously there's no racetrack. Okay, I'm seeing that there's a ball of some kind back here. Is this game sports ball? Stanley, I think it's sports ball. Oh, what fun. We shall run the bases and do a touchdown together? Yes, I think surely we must. Okay, Stanley, here's the ball. Have fun.
Yeah, I know this game. I can't think of what it's called. I'm supposed to smack it with the... I can move faster now.
Hold on. What are you doing?
Infinite hope. Infinite hope.
Stanley, don't do that. I can't follow you there. I can't help you. How will you write a story without me? You can't do it. You know that. Stanley, come back.
Such open area. There's a lot of holes, but I think everything kind of diverges the same way in the end. Quiet. There. Oh, what happened?
I wonder what he found. If what he wanted was to be the leading man in his own story, well, perhaps he's gotten it. Down in wherever he is right now. I wonder if he's happy with his choice, and if he's learned the heavy cost that comes with it. He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end, to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. That's who I am. That is what I mean to this world. Oh, yes. Yes, I'll be back. There's no other way. Once this ends, after it all comes to a close, then I'll be back. The end will be here soon. Very soon. I can wait.
Oh, there he goes. Okay. As long as it reloads, actually restarting this time and not. Okay, we did restart. Okay, we are over time. We are going to close this out, and we'll find more next time. We are progressed quite a bit this time, I want to say. We got a good chunk done. I hope you all enjoyed this. We had quite the bucket of today, and I had a lot of fun. I'll see you all next time in another episode of Stanley Parables. Bye, everyone.